All right, welcome everyone. This is Dr. Clark from the Center for Weight Loss Success. And today on Losing Weight USA, we're going to go a little further in what we were talking about last week. So we're talking about fitness, and now we're going to talk a little more about advanced fitness. So last week was more of a kind of, hey, this is the very beginning. Now we're going to talk about some advanced fitness and what to look for. All right, welcome to Losing Weight USA, real-time answers to your weight loss questions, some of the latest updates and research, as well as a little bit of expert advice. Gives you direct access not only to me, but you should be receiving the health tips and recipes via the membership portal. And I encourage you, get into the membership site. That's where we keep all of the educational materials for all the webinars, all these webinars, as well as all the access to the materials that go along with my Weight Loss Academy, Weight Management University, all that's in there. All right, each of these webinars is going to last about 30 minutes or so. If you have questions, type them into the chat box as we go along. If you think of things once we're all done, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email is success@cfwls.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. All right, so we're talking about fitness. Let me get the slides over. All right, very good. So kind of fitness again. We're talking about advanced fitness, and just as a quick review, typically a quality exercise plan is going to incorporate these modalities of strength training, cardiovascular training. So strength training we typically talk about as resistance training. Cardiovascular is literally anything that gets your heart rate up. And then also incorporate flexibility and balance. So the stretching exercise, working on balance, these things we tend to lose as we age. And so we want to keep these things as we get older. So in order to do that, keep working on those things. So today, again, we're talking about advanced fitness. And this is going to actually incorporate not only just these different exercise plans, but also talk a little bit about anaerobic exercise. Not aerobic exercise, but anaerobic exercise, which basically means without oxygen, which means we're working so hard we can't get enough air in. All right, so before we get into that, some benefits of exercise. Typically people know this already, but a physically demanding exercise plan is going to provide both psychological but also emotional benefits. It's a great stress reliever, so it's contributing then to your overall well-being. But from a medical standpoint, again, exercise helps reduce blood pressure, reduce cholesterol, reduce body fat, reduce depression and anxiety. It helps with insulin sensitivity. So it's a treatment for insulin resistance. Okay? But it can also then increase your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, can increase strength, it can increase your work capacity, increase your cardiac function, and it also protects against osteoporosis, can protect against certain cancers. There's so many benefits of an exercise program. And the bottom line is that it's going to improve the overall quality of your life. But it does take work to get into all this. So again, as a review, the basic components of a fitness regimen, again, you want to mix up the cardiovascular, which gets up heart rate, resistance training, which is basically weight training, body weight training works great too, and then incorporate the flexibility exercise, and I would also encourage balance exercise too. Typically use the FIT principle, FIT, which are frequencies, how often are you going to do this? Intensity, how hard are you going to do this? And time, which is how long are you going to do this? And I guess you could throw in another T there as the type of exercise. You do want to make sure you warm up prior to exercising, as well as cool down and stretch after any workout. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure you're using correct form. Again, I encourage people to work with a personal trainer. It's a great way to get started, as well as give you that accountability. All right, so now advanced fitness. So the principles of fitness, if we're trying to advance our fitness program, is we want to make progression. We want to see this change in the frequency, the intensity, and in the time that we're exercising. You also want to do this with regularity, at least 3 balanced workouts a week. If you can do more than that, fantastic, but it generally takes a good 3 balanced workouts every week to really improve your fitness. And fitness is basically kind of your health at its best. Okay, that's what fitness is. And then specificity means which exercises. You want to select the best exercise for you. Okay, there's not a single best. It's kind of, okay, the best exercise. What works well for you? What do you like? So selecting that exercise program. And then finally, with this exercise program, you want to slowly overload, meaning that increase your difficulty. So if we're going to the more we get fit, say with the weight training thing, you want to bump up the weights, bump up the reps, bump up the time frame, bump up the intensity. So yes, we want to slowly overload this and improve our overall fitness. Now, I alluded to this right at the beginning, aerobic versus anaerobic exercise. Oxygen consumption, we don't live unless we're consuming oxygen. Once we've stopped consuming oxygen, we're dead. Okay? So oxygen consumption falls into 3 categories. Aerobic, meaning we're utilizing plenty of oxygen, we're kind of staying well oxygenated. Anaerobic, which means, okay, we're actually getting to the point where we can't get enough oxygen, and then in between, a combination of the two, aerobic and anaerobic, meaning we're kind of slowly going up into that really high anaerobic side then, as opposed to always staying where we're getting plenty of oxygen. Aerobic again means with oxygen. So anything we're doing in life, hopefully we're doing it with oxygen. But it really refers to the use of oxygen in your metabolic and energy producing process. So that we can keep all these energy producing equations going, we have to get enough oxygen in. And any activity that basically increases your heart rate and uses O2, we're going to start using more and more of that oxygen. So in general, an aerobic exercise tends to mean a generally continuous, rhythmic, and prolonged exercise. When you think about aerobics, okay, we talked about back in the 80s and 90s last century, talking about aerobics. We were talking about something that is typically a rhythmic, whether it be dancing moves type of thing, and often done in a class type of setting. But basically, it was enough to get your heart rate up significantly, but you were always getting in plenty of oxygen. On the other hand, anaerobic means without oxygen. And basically, we can do anaerobic exercise only for very short duration. So it has to be very short lasting, really high intensity. So typically when we talk about anaerobic exercise, we're talking about a very high intense exercise, but it's only done for a very short period of time. I'm talking seconds, because we can't live without oxygen. So any period of time without oxygen, basically, then we're causing more damage. But very short bursts of kind of time where we're working really intensely, it's kind of like the all-out sprint at the end, okay, or an all-out sprint in the 100-meter dash, that type of thing. So it's very short-lasting, very high-intensity activity, and the oxygen demand, what our body is demanding, really can't, it exceeds the supply, meaning we can't actually get enough oxygen in as we're gasping for air. So we're going beyond the amount that we can actually get in there. And so this relies then on energy sources that are within the muscle itself. And these then can be for a very short period of time. They're not dependent on oxygen. And again, we can only do this for a very, very short period of time. So most exercises then, since we're talking about anaerobic being an extremely short period of time, most exercises then fall somewhere in between aerobic and anaerobic. And it could only go up to anaerobic exercise, or the intensity up to anaerobic exercise, for very short bursts. And so typically it's a combination, kind of going back and forth. And if you think about it, the real point of exercise is to improve your ability to consume, transport, and utilize the oxygen that we're breathing in, and literally use these in all the literally thousands of biochemical equations that go on continuously in our body. And so that's really the point, is that we can be an efficient machine, and we utilize oxygen all the time. The better in shape we are, the more fitness we have, the better our fitness is, then we'll be able to utilize this oxygen in a most efficient manner. That's typically us at our best health. Now, how do we actually measure this then, what you're doing? So typically we use heart rate. Okay, so using heart rate to estimate our intensity of the exercise. So when we talk about using heart rate, the most common formula utilized to figure out kind of our maximum heart rate is taking 220 minus your age. Okay, so if you're 50 years old, okay, 220 minus your age, then your maximum heart rate is around 170. Okay, so that would be your maximum heart rate. Now realize that this is probably within about a 10% error. Okay, but that's pretty close though. Okay, so depending on how old you are, if you're 20 years old, then 220 minus 20 would be 200. If you're 60 years old, then 220 minus 60 would be 160. So that would be your kind of maximum heart rate. And a good place to start, it's probably within about 10%. Now, another way to look at that, and heart rate meters are one of the best things as far as a piece of equipment one can own. I encourage, just to digress here for a minute on this, I do encourage people to utilize heart rate meters. And they do make them, you can wear them on your wrist. Okay, but the potential problem with the ones on the wrist, and as technology advances, they're going to figure out this problem. But so one of the potential problems with wearing a wrist monitor is that at really low levels and really high levels, they start to get very inaccurate. And so typically during the day, when you're walking around doing yeah, they work really well. They can measure your heart rate very nicely. But during a really significant exercise, intense exercise, they start becoming more and more, or less and less accurate, I should say. It's going to become more inaccurate. So kind of one of the best ways to use a heart rate meter is to actually use a chest strap. And a lot of you can find them on Amazon, and they're fairly inexpensive. And then you may wear it's the receiver. Okay, you have the transmitter, you're wearing a chest strap, and the receiver on your wrist, so you can look at your wrist, and it's giving you your heart rate, but it's actually measuring it from a chest strap as opposed to measuring it from around your wrist. They tend to be more accurate, but obviously you have to put on extra equipment than when you're working out. All right, so a different way, if you're not doing your heart rate meter, okay, is another way to do that then is look at kind of what's referred to as the rate of perceived exertion scale, or RPE. RPE is kind of how do you perceive how hard you're working out? What's the intensity? And we just look at this as a scale from 1 to 10, and 1 basically is doing nothing. Sitting around doing absolutely none of this, relaxed. I can be basically kind of, laying in bed doing absolutely nothing. To 10, which is absolutely all-out sprint. Okay, I cannot work any harder than that. Okay, so it's anywhere in between there. 5 would be, kind of that really fast walk or slow jog in there, and kind of then you figure it out in between there. And it really just is, how are you perceiving how hard you're working? And over a period of time, it can be helpful then in kind of looking at, can I up that? Okay. A good way to then look at this, another way to look at this then is with using heart rate meters is training in kind of heart rate zones, at kind of certain zones, usually expressed as a percentage of your maximum heart rate. Again, maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. Again, that's about within 10%. So 220 minus your age, using that, and then exercising within a percentage of that. So if your maximum heart rate was, let's just say, talk about 20-year-old, so it's 200, and you're working, you're warming up, so at 50% max, then your heart rate's about 100. Okay, at 60% match, then okay, about 120 or so. And so you can kind of figure that out. It's kind of what's the percentage of maximum effort basically is that 90 to 100% maximum heart rate. So so what we often look at then, and we're going to talk about this as kind of that fat burning zone here in a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about what I call the fallacy of the fat burning zone, but kind of just looking at training heart rates in certain zones. Typically a warm up is going to be in that 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate. The fitness zone is going to be in that 60 to 70%. When we start getting into true aerobics, where we're doing kind of something fairly rhythmically for a period of time, whether it be bicycling, skating, running, jogging, all these kind of things, they're aerobic, continuous motion type of thing. That's going to be in the 70 to 80% of maximum heart rate. And then when we start what I'll call flirting with anaerobic, okay, anaerobic exercise is typically in that 80 to 90%, closing in on that 100% almost maximum effort type of thing. Well, again, we can only do that for relatively short periods of time. But if you can actually train near that anaerobic zone, if you can train 15 to 20, really getting your heart rate up, we get the maximum of cardiovascular benefit there. Okay. All right, so I mentioned earlier kind of that fat burning zone. What does that actually mean when people talk about, hey, working out in a fat burning zone? Okay, as we're working, literally as we're living day to day, breathing, doing nothing, but if we're working out, the energy that your body utilizes during life, okay, including exercise, okay, so your energy that your body uses during exercise comes from the breakdown of both carbohydrate and fat. Okay, that's where the energy is coming from. So if you're exercising in that 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate, most of the energy then is coming from the breakdown of fat. Okay, the issue there is that you're not actually burning that much energy. So the calorie burn during that fat burning zone isn't actually that much, but the most of the energy that is being burned, or the calories that are being burned, are coming from fat. That's what the fat burning zone is. Okay, now why do I actually say what's the fallacy of the fat burning zone? The issue is that you're not actually burning that many calories. So if you actually go up higher into that heart rate zone, 80% to 90%, now you're going to be working a lot harder. And a lot of the energy, the calories that are burned, are going to be coming not only from fat, but also from carbohydrate. So we think of that, gee, well, it's not just burning mainly fat. It's like, well, no, we're also burning carbohydrate. And that is not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing because, one, you're burning a lot more calories. Okay. So even though, gee, it's not all fat burning calories, but you're burning a lot more calories. And if you burn a lot of carbohydrate calories, then for those of us who are carbohydrate sensitive, which most of the population is that now if we burned off a lot of that carbohydrate, we can actually then replace that carbohydrate. So therefore we get a little more leeway if we take ourselves up above that fat burning zone into that carbohydrate, hey, burning mainly carbohydrate, carbohydrate or even more carbohydrate, that means we're getting rid of carbohydrate stores. And by getting rid of carbohydrate stores, subsequently now we can replace carbohydrate stores. It will actually help with that carbohydrate sensitivity because now I can actually replace the carbohydrate stores before it begins overflowing into the fat generating side of the whole thing. So what we end up doing then, if we kind of take that intensity up, is we'll get a bigger bang for the buck, for the bigger bang for the amount of exercise that you're doing. So there's much more benefit to be obtained from exercising at a higher percentage of maximum heart rate. Yes, less of the percent of calorie that are burned will be coming from fat, but the total calorie burn is so much higher. And when we can do that, you'll actually continue the calorie burn for a longer period of time once you're done exercising. That's kind of often referred to as afterburn or something that we're still, the metabolism is revved up quite a bit. We're still burning more calories as we recover. Okay? And so the harder, more intense we have that exercise program, the better that afterburn is. And so the total calorie burn is then going to continue, not just from when we were exercising, but it's going to be a lot greater. And for really intense exercise, we're talking about high intensity interval training here just in a second, is just that, okay, you can actually burn more calories afterwards and may actually continue that for up to 24 hours after an exercise program like that, is that overall you're burning a lot more calories. All right, so back to aerobic training then. Okay, aerobic means with oxygen. Typically, it means we're doing continuous type of movement for a period of time, getting our heart rate way up. So we may be doing continuous training, and it could be jogging, swimming, biking, whatever, just kind of going that same rate. Okay, and it's typically training at 60 to 80% of your maximum heart rate for at least 20 minutes. Okay. All right, other types. There's high intensity continuous training. That's typically bumping this up kind of that 85 to 90% of the maximum heart rate. It's one of the best ways to improve endurance. So if you're working on, gee, I want to improve endurance, what you need to do is take it up a couple notches during some of the workout. Getting in that training to 85 to 90% of maximum heart rate, it's a great way to actually improve endurance. This isn't for the beginner. This is something you have to slowly work towards. So it's not like you have beginning exercise that you can really go out there and do this. It's like, no, you need to slowly work into this. Long, slow distance, or LSD, is basically kind of that going out for that once a week, a really long workout, but never so much that you know, basically you can speak almost through this. It's training at talking speed. Okay. And then there's something that's from Sweden referred to as fartlek training, which isn't like it sounds. Okay. Basically, fartlek means speed play. Okay. And basically it's doing faster and slower, faster and slower, changing speeds on whatever exercise you're doing, whether it be biking, dancing, swimming, jogging, whatever it is. Okay. All right. Now, taking that a step further, then, is you have high intensity interval training, or HIIT, 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 high intensity interval training. Gotten a lot of publicity over the last few years, and it can improve physical performance in fairly short training sessions, which is a good thing. So, and as I've spoken previously about, is that one of the biggest fallacies of exercise is thinking that as you get more fit, you got to exercise longer. And really, now, as you get more fit, you got to exercise shorter. And there may be certain days you do longer, but you can exercise shorter and get a great workout in a shorter period of time. You have to be fairly fit to be able to do this. But, okay, as we get more and more fit, we can bump up the intensity significantly, shorten the exercise time. It's very physically demanding. It's not for beginners. but it is somewhere to work towards. And it's basically alternating really high intensity, almost up to 100% maximum heart rate, with then very short recovery periods where you let the heart rate drift back down a little bit. And it's just alternating back and forth. Really high intensity, a little less intense. High intensity, a little less intense. And what you want to do as you get better at doing that is slowly increase the high intensity times or decrease the low intensity times. Shorten that out so you're doing more, maybe doing the high intensity more often. If you're doing, really high intensity workout where you're doing literally 20 seconds all out, then resting or doing it for the 40 seconds. And every minute, kind of what you want to do then slowly as you get more fit is then, okay, now I'm going to do 30 seconds all out and only rest 30 seconds. So it's kind of that, slowly getting into a more and more intense workout, and you can shorten your workout significantly. And there are studies that show that there's continued increase in their basal metabolism for a good 24 hours after doing these workouts. And so subsequently, yeah, you're not only getting more fit, but you're actually getting a significant calorie burn afterwards. The greatest results with doing this are if you can actually incorporate resistance training. Body weight is one of the best ways to do this. High intensity interval resistance training. And they have Tabata, some of the best example of that. I'll let you look that up. But that's really very short periods of time, only like 4 or 5 minutes, of doing this really intense workout where you're only resting literally a couple of seconds for diving back into it. So it's really high intensity interval resistance training. Body weight training works great with doing that type of thing, whether it be squats, push-ups, pull-ups. You can do body weight training stuff and do this by changing the exercise, getting your heart rate up, and doing it to a very quick exhaustion, and then just enough rest in between so that you can do it again. This gives one of the greatest results that there are in improvement in fitness. You just can't start there. Okay, and it's something you have to work towards. All right, again, using the FIT principle, frequency, intensity, time. Okay, and then you can throw in type as well. That's a type of exercise. So increasing the frequency, how often are you going to do this? Increasing the intensities, how hard am I going to do this? And increasing the times, how long am I going to do this? The type is obvious that what type of exercise you're doing. And so what I encourage people to do then is set up a plan, but after a few weeks, revisit each of these and change them up. Whether you change up the frequency, whether you change up the intensity, whether you change up the time. By changing it up, you're going to be kind of working harder and getting more out of the workout plan. All right, some final thoughts here. The right shoes make the difference. Replace them every 6 months or so if you're working that. And nowadays, shoes often still look really good, but they may not have the support anymore. So replacing them every 6 months or so. Utilize the personal trainer. It's a great resource for getting started, especially using great technique. You want to make sure you're not going to injure yourself. Okay. Do not ignore exercise as part of your weight loss plan. As I say often, exercise by itself isn't a weight loss plan. It's the dietary part that's going to be the weight loss plan. The exercise just promotes this, helps keep the metabolism high as possible. It doesn't necessarily make you lose weight faster. It's a rare person that can actually exercise themselves to weight loss. But don't ignore exercise. Just like Nike's tagline, just do it. No excuses. All right. Don't see any questions in there, but this is something that's very, very important as you get more fit. And hopefully you're working towards that. As you get more fit, you really want to kind of work on bumping up variety, bumping up intensity of all this. That's the way to really improve fitness in the long run. All right, very good. Make sure you're stopping by. You can't stop. Again, we're doing a lot of these injectable weight loss medications. We encourage people that they're working. They work wonderfully, but you still got to have a good diet plan with it. You still got to have a good exercise plan with it. It's just something more to help get even better results. But stop by the Center for Weight Loss Success and get your body comp done. Make sure you're logging into the membership portal. You'll receive the weight loss tips as well as the weekly recipes. Tune in each Tuesday, 12:15 for the next webinar. Watch your email for the invite and link. And then remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.